I'm Kerry, this is What This Week, and I'm here to tell you about what I've been reading, what I've been listening to, what I've been watching, etc. So starting with the reading, I have been reading for one of my book clubs both The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne and Hester by Laurie, Lico, Albanese. This is a classic set in America in the 1700s, so kind of like New England, and this character has moved to the New World from England, awaiting her husband to arrive after her, and in the meanwhile she becomes pregnant and is the mother to an illegitimate child, and so the Puritan judges and religious folk and generally the community are very judgmental about this, and she is shamed and shunned for that. She won't reveal the identity of the father of her child, and so it's all about that judgment that's placed on her, how she lives with that, and the response from the wider community. I found this in the reading to be very boring. I felt like not very much happened in it. We do discover the identity of both her husband and her lover, but not an awful lot else happens in the book. That said, as I was trying to write some notes for a review, I was picking up on more themes that I thought were quite interesting, and so perhaps on reflection I got more from this than I did in the actual reading of it. I think I've read two Victorian novels recently, The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins and this one, and I think for classics I probably would benefit from reading them with some notes. I think I'd get more out of it that way, but that's a problem for future Kerry. So that was The Scarlet Letter. I then went on to read Hester by Laurie, Lico, Albanese. Now I thought this was a retelling. It's not quite a retelling. It's a reimagining of the inspiration behind the story of The Scarlet Letter. So Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of The Scarlet Letter, is a character in here, and what happens in this book is a speculation of the inspiration of that story. So it's quite clever in that regard. I thought that this was fine. I found it quite slow. I really wanted to like this. There's so much that's really great in here. Really cracking characters on paper. It's a really solid historical novel. It's got a really small amount of magic in here. The main character has synesthesia. God, I'm glad I got that out the first time, because it's a really hard word to say. So basically she can see colours in people's words. So as people are speaking, she sees their words in colour, and that then gives her an indication about their motives and so on. And she sews some of that magic. She's a craftswoman. She sews some of that magic into her embroidery and so on. So much that on paper is to love about this, that the main character is also a really feisty, independent female protagonist, which I should have loved, but I found her a bit 2D. I wouldn't go so far as to say one-dimensional, but a bit two-dimensional in my mind's eye. I didn't feel really connected to her until sort of almost the very end of the book. So there's a lot of build up to the last quarter of the book, which is really quite action-packed, and a lot happens, and a lot of the last quarter is you seeing how it kind of connects to the Scarlet Letter. So you have a lot more kind of character development, you have a lot of plot in that last quarter of the book, and you have a lot of the explanation of how it connects to the Scarlet Letter. And so I just felt that I found the first three quarters of the book a little bit tedious, and then the last quarter was really great, and it just felt a bit unbalanced in the pacing, I guess. On the whole, I thought it was a great book. If you're into historical fiction, I would recommend it. If you're into something with just a little bit of witchy magic, it's not hard, it doesn't go hard on the witchiness or the magic side of things. It's very light touch. So if that sounds like your jam, I would recommend this. So those are the books that I've finished. I have started reading Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. I've decided to take part in a FOMO book club this month. I haven't done that before, but they were reading this and I would like to. The other Grady Hendrix books I've read so far are Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and the one about the exorcism, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I've loved both of those. I'm not a horror reader, but I really love what Grady Hendrix does with horror. It's camp, it's a little bit funny, and quite outrageous at times. I think he's, you know, an incredibly creative author. So this is Horrorstor. It's about, as you can see, it's laid out as if it's a catalogue for a well-known furniture store. So the starts of the chapters look like this, and yeah, it's ripping off IKEA basically, which I think is really clever, and I think it's going to be a haunted shop story. So I'm about 50 pages in, and yeah, having a really great time so far. So that's Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. And I've also started Scripted by Fearne. I'm actually listening to this at the moment, but I have got the hard copy, so I'll do a bit of reading and listening in tandem. I've spoken about this a few times. I think I got it for my birthday and was really excited to read it. It's been one of my most anticipated books this year. I really like Fearne as a person, and I've enjoyed her non-fiction books. This is her first fiction novel. So it's about a character called Jade who's feeling a bit stuck in her life. On her way home from a run, she discovers a script outside her front door, and when she reads it, it's a script of her and her boyfriend having an argument that hasn't happened yet, and then later that evening that argument actually plays out, and then the next day she finds another script and it's about a conversation between her and her sister, and then that plays out, and so on and so on. So she's just at the point now of thinking, can I do anything about this now that I've seen and recognised this? Essentially she's a bit passive, she's a bit people-pleasing, and she's noticing that she's letting people walk all over her, and she's wondering if she can rewrite the narrative, and that's where we're up to. So I'm having a really good time. It's very easy reading and listening, and I know Sarah at Your True Shelf has read and enjoyed this, so yeah, I can't see why I won't enjoy the rest of it. So that's what I've been reading and listening to. In terms of what I've been watching, so we have watched and binged a new series called Ludwig this week. It stars David Mitchell, who's a comedian and has been on BBC, and he is the twin brother of a detective, and when his twin brother goes missing, the twin brother's wife asks him to pose as him with his colleagues to try and get to the bottom of what's gone on and why he's gone missing. He himself is a puzzle writer, so he's a really great mind who writes these really intricate puzzles, and so when he turns up at his brother's workplace posing as his twin brother, he's whisked off to a crime scene and then plays detective for the series. So that's essentially the premise of how it goes. It was a really good time. We really enjoyed it. Yeah, we found it really quite funny. And it wasn't long enough. We've binged it pretty quickly and hope that there will be another series. So yeah, if you have access to BBC iPlayer, I would really recommend Ludwig. That was a good time. The other thing that we watched was The Radleys, the film adaptation of the Matt Haig book about vampires. Really enjoyed that book. The film adaptation had Damian Lewis in it, who's a fantastic actor, and I can't remember the name of his wife, the actor that plays his wife, but she's fantastic too. I thought, yeah, okay, I wasn't all that keen on the adaptation. I don't know that it really worked, because it was just a bit flat. Maybe it would have worked better as a series actually, so that you had a bit more time to kind of get to know the characters, because there's quite big character development. I suppose that perhaps was a bit too much to squeeze into a film. I don't know. Yeah, that was a bit of a shame. If you've watched it and you've read the book, let me know what you think. Other things that I've been up to this week, I went to a book launch event for The Significance of Swans by Rhiannon Lewis. Rhiannon lives up the road from me in Abergavenny, so I went off to Waterstones, Abergavenny, to listen to her talk about her book. It's published by Alolva, which is a small Welsh publishers, but this is an English language book. It's a dystopian novel. It's really interesting listening to Rhiannon talk. So she wrote this a long time ago as a short story and then developed it into a novella. It's not hugely long. And it's, yes, a dystopian story set in the not too distant future where people start just disappearing overnight. And eventually this woman is left alone, and it's got a kind of older female protagonist. It sounds like a cross between I Who Have Never Known Men, They, and The Blue Book of Nebo. That's what it sounded like from her description. She also did a couple of readings and talked about the fact that there's humour in here, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I think it sounds absolutely smashing. Whilst I was in Waterstones, I spotted a book that I quite fancied and then saw it in the library today, so I've taken that out, and it is the Starling, a biography by, it's got a very shiny cover on it, sorry, by Stephen Moss. We have a rather large crowd of starlings that hang out in our garden and decimate whatever I put on the bird table, but they're really, really funny to watch, so I thought this would be really lovely to read a bit more about them. And the thing is, like, there's something about murmurations, like the way that starlings fly in the sky in one big collective shape, that does something really extraordinary to my nervous system. Just watching that in the sky has a hugely like physical calming reaction on me. I can't explain it. So yes, looking forward to having a read of that. I think that sounds lovely. The other thing that's happening, sorry Sam, am I disturbing you? The other thing that's happened this week is, so without going into too much detail and oversharing, my sister's partner, my sister's fiance has a daughter. So she's not referred to as mum or stepmum or anything like that. And she's turning 4 in December. And they all live in Germany. So German is her first language, but they're teaching her English as well. And one of the ways that they do that is they put on audiobooks in English for her as she's going to bed. And my sister asked if I might record some like stories, like reading stories, so that they can play that to her, which is lovely, isn't it? What a lovely thing to be asked. So I'll do that, but I need a bit of help. I don't have children, so yeah, I need a bit of help knowing what would be good. So she listens to Winnie the Pooh at the moment. I was thinking Peter Rabbit and maybe the Moomins. I would quite like to read the Moomins. So that would kind of like be 2 birds with 1 stone, because I would enjoy that and I think that would be nice for her. So I've tried to do a bit of research, but obviously books that are suitable for 4-year-olds are your sort of picture books. But I'm obviously not going to be there. She's not going to have the picture books to look at, so I think it's okay to do sort of slightly older stories. And you know, the idea is that they put it on and she falls asleep to it, so they do need to be like more than a couple of minutes long, as a bedtime story would be for somebody, for a child, if you were reading to them. Yeah, so if you've got any bright ideas, I was thinking Peter Rabbit and Moomins. I did go into town. I have been to the library. I got a bit overwhelmed in the children's section of the library. I wasn't really sure what I was looking for. Had a bit more success in the bookshop. I've picked up 2 books. Well, I've overdone it basically, because I've got books out from the library, I went to the bookshop, and I've been to a couple of charity shops. and I've picked up a selection of sort of younger children's books and also some picture books. Basically I've gone way over the top. But I thought I would show you a couple of the books I'm most excited about reading. The first is Fabio, the world's greatest flamingo detective. This looks gorgeous. The first, let me read you the introduction because it's just super cute. In a small town on the banks of Lake Laluzzi lives the world's greatest flamingo detective. His name is Fabio. He's not tall or strong, but slight and pink, and he's very, very clever. At his side for every case is his friend and associate Gilbert, a giraffe terrible at the art of disguise, but good at asking questions, sometimes even the right ones. And it's got these really, really lovely illustrations in it that are all pink and green. I thought that sounded great. And then the other one that I'm very excited about is Rabbit and Bear. This is Rabbit's Bad Habits, which I think is the first book. This is by Julian, Gough and Jim Field. And again, it sounds it sounds really lovely, and it's full of really nice illustrations. So perhaps I'll record myself reading these and then send them over. So I know that these are too old. I know that these are aimed at children older than 4, but yeah, I was looking for something that was substantial enough to read as a sort of audiobook to kind of doze off to. But if you have any bright ideas about what would work really well, I would love to hear them because I am sort of clutching at straws. The other thing which I think is important to share with you that I have discovered recently is Monster Munch pickled onion flavour mayonnaise. I really like it. It tastes exactly like pickled onion Monster Munch. And who wouldn't want that on their chips? Anyway, please don't unsubscribe because of that. I hope you've been having a really good week. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.